as we begin with fractions, one thing that I like to encourage my students to do is to just play with the fractions. There are real world reasons why we have to deal with fractions, and a lot of those reasons have to do with measuring and deciding on different amounts. Fractions are related to decimals that we've spent a lot of the first part of the year learning about, and fractions are also just an extension of division. So all of those ideas become clearer if you are willing to play with the fractions, find them in real life, and it's best to start with the obvious ones, which is why today we are starting with half. If you were to write the amount half, what would it look like? And yes, I do want you to make sure that your paper looks like mine. So the amount half has a 1 on the top, a line, and a 2 on the bottom. This is how we are accustomed to seeing the amount half being written. Sometimes the line is sideways, kind of like a backslash, and the 1 is still on top and the 2 is still on the bottom. Sometimes when the computer writes it with that sideways backslash, it looks like the 1 and the 2 are side by side. This still is the fraction 1/2. So you can read it as 1/2. You can also think 2 is the total and 1 is the part. Usually we say it's the part that you have. So yes, I want you to make sure you have 1/2 written with the straight line, 1/2 written with the backslash, and indicate that the 1 on top is showing a part, the 2 on the bottom is showing a total. Those ideas are the same for any fraction. Now, something else that's interesting, I mentioned that fractions are related to decimals. So you can always take the top number and divide it by the bottom number. So in a fraction, 1 divided by 2. If you put that mathematics into a calculator, you will come up with the decimal equivalent, the way a decimal shows the amount 1/2. Hopefully you kind of already know that. We're starting with one that should be familiar. But now what we're going to do is investigate and apply that idea of 1 part out of 2. First way we're going to divide it is into clocks. So we need to show 1/2 6 different ways on the clocks. You could think time-wise, or you could just say, oh wait, if I split my clock into 2 total spots and I color in 1 of the 2, that is half of the clock. Morning. Beautiful. I'll see you in a bit. Hopefully I'll be done with my video. Love yous. Bye. Obviously that was my parents, but we will continue, and I will hope to have this video finished by the time they get here to kidnap me because they think I'm working too hard. 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2 pieces on the clock, but it says we need to show this in 6 different ways. So that's one way to show half on the clock. How else could you show half of the clock? Well, you could just start 5 minutes later and go 5 minutes longer. That would be another half. since we have to show half in 6 different ways, you are going to have to use your clock to show half 2 different times. So on these other 2 clocks, hopefully you have some idea of how you can show that there are 2 total sections in your clock and designate one of those 2 sections. Then we have to think about it a little bit differently. Yes, I know your papers say 1/4 of an hour and 4/4 of an hour, but okay, just hang on a second. Change that to 1/2 of an hour and 2/2 of an hour. We'll get to fourths later. So if 1 hour has 60 minutes, how many minutes are in 1/2 of an hour? Well, hopefully you already know that there are 30 minutes in half of an hour. If I go ahead and divide my clock in half again, this one I don't want you to do. These 2 ways of showing half you should. This I'm just using as an example. So if I divide my clock into 1/2, I could count all the little teeny tiny minutes. I could remember that between the numbers, it represents sections of 5 minutes. So I could go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And say there's 30 minutes inside that half hour. Or I could look at my 60. My 60 is the total. How many minutes would there be if I took my total, split it in 2 pieces, and just took one of those pieces? So I take my 60, split it in 2, divide it by 2. Well, obviously there are going to be 30 minutes if I take just one out of those 2 sections that have 60 minutes total. So you can take fractions of a whole amount, and it's important that you start thinking that way. This one turns it even more interestingly. So wait a minute, I have my 2 60-minute pieces, my 2 pieces that have 60 minutes total. How many minutes do I have if I take those 2 pieces? Well, there's 30 minutes in one piece. There's 30 minutes in the other piece. If I take both halves, 2 out of 2 pieces, don't I have the entire hour? Which would be 60 minutes. Now let's play with this a little bit more. What if I take 3 halves? Well, I already know there's 1/2 that had 30, 1/2 that has 30 minutes. Another half would be another 30 minutes. So 3/2 of an hour would have 30, 60, 90 minutes. And technically, don't I have 1 hour plus half an hour? So couldn't I say, really, I have 1 whole hour and 1/2? Having played with that, the rest of your assignment in this section is just to show 4 more ways to show half on a clock. Explain what 1/2 means with 1 complete sentence and no examples. This, after you are done watching this video, you should have a pretty good idea of what to put there. That I am not going to lead you toward. 1/2 on the number line in 5 places. Well, again, to get 1/2, I need to split a whole into 2 pieces. Between 10 and 11, that would be 1 whole thing, right? But it's already split into more than 2 pieces. Well, that's not a problem. So was the clock. The clock was split into 60 pieces. Here, This is like a ruler. How many pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces between 10 and 11. So where's the halfway mark? Well, 4 pieces on this side, 4 pieces on this side. Right here, between these two sections, is going to be 1/2. You need to find 1/2 in 5 places. Oh. Well, that might not be too difficult if I just keep on going between 10.5 and 11 and find halfway between 11 and 12. That would give me 2 more halves, but I need to find a 5th half. Well, now wait a minute. There are 8 total pieces in one whole section. 4 pieces anywhere on this line should show half, right? So couldn't I say 1, 2, 3, 4? Wouldn't that be equal to 1/2? Is it the same size? Sure thing. You need to find 5 halves on this line. I've already showed you 2 of them. Write or show an example of half with food. Candy bars, pizzas. You would actually draw it out. Mine happens to be a candy bar. And then you would need to show, all right, if this is my candy bar, where is half of it? What if you draw a Twix? Where would half of your Twix be? Ooh, that might make things interesting. You would need to do more than draw. You would need to label things just like we've done on our number line and our clock. In these 3 boxes, you need to simply show 3 amounts that are still equal to 1/2. I'll give you a hint. 30 minutes out of 60 minutes. Wasn't that equal to 1/2? How many pieces did we take out of a total in one whole section to get half of the section? That would be equivalent to half. You might see some other places on this page that help you to write fractions that would still show, here's my whole amount. If I split it into 2 sections and take one of the 2 sections, this is how much I have. This chart gets a little trickier. In your Y column, it must be 1/2 of X. I'll give you a hint. Start with even numbers. You can use odd numbers, but even numbers are easier. In fact, we already have a beginning over here. If Y is 1/2 the size of X, wouldn't X be 60? And for Y to be half of that size, shouldn't Y be 30? You need to fill in this chart again. Can you reuse equivalent fractions for 1/2? Other ways of showing 1/2 that you've got on this sheet? Absolutely. But you need 1, 2, 3, 4 more ways of showing 1/2. Now this box, you will notice, it doesn't have any directions in it. What do you need to do here? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I want you to use this to help you with these other sections. So if this is a whole amount, and this is just 1/2, technically, shouldn't you be able to say, oh, wait a minute, okay, 1/2, but if I've got 4 pieces, how many of those 4 pieces does it take to make an amount equal to 1/2? What about if I take my whole bar and divide it into 6 equal pieces? How many of those does it take? So I want you to color to show 1/2. How many times do I want you to do that though? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd like you to do that 5 places. Oh, but how can I do that? How can I do that? Well, wait a minute. We were able to show 1/2 up on the number line by thinking a little bit out of the box. If we don't start right here, could we still show the amount of pieces it would take to equal 1/2? That's what I'm looking for here. This last section, find the lengths of the sides of the rectangles such that the perimeter for 1, so here's rectangle 1, has to be 1/2 that of number 2. So first of all, let's think totals, right? Perimeter, you have to add all 4 sides. So blank plus blank plus blank plus blank. Let's make it easy. Let's make each of them 1, right? Because 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 4. So if that perimeter is 4, it has to be 1/2 of 2, which means the perimeter of 2 has to double the perimeter of 4. So I have to take those sides and they must add up to how much? They've got to add up to 8. Isn't 4 half of 8? If I have 8 cookies and divide them in half, each person's going to have 4 cookies, right? If I divide them amongst a group of 2 people. So the perimeter here, these sides must add up to 8. This one looks like a rectangle. Technically, this one's a rectangle too, so maybe I didn't need to use 1, but it didn't say to make it look exactly like a rectangle, right? It just said perimeter is 1/2. So what could I make both sides and these 2 sides? Well, let's see. If I say the long ones are 3, 3 plus 3 is 6. That leaves me 2 to get to 8. But I can't make this side 2 because this side would be 0 then, right? So what if I make each of these sides 1? 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. All right, so my perimeter of number 1 is 4. When I add up the sides of number 2, it's 8. So rectangle 1's perimeter is half of rectangle 8. Now I have to find the area. This is supposed to be a review of 4th grade, but I know the end of your 4th grade year was weird. So you might not remember that to find area, you take length times width. Hopefully you remember that from when we reviewed area to find volume. You have to find the area of a base first. So length times width, 1 times 1. So the area of rectangle number 1 equals 1. What is the area of rectangle number 2? Length times width. 3 times 1 is 3. Now, it does not tell me what these units are, so to label it, I'm just going to say units. Since the perimeter is straight lines, I don't need to worry about flying numbers, but area is squares on the bottom, so I have to have a flying 2, units squared. All right, So don't forget, you need to finish showing 1/2 like this. You need to finish your chart with 1/2. Y has to be half of X. Here you need 2 more fractions that still show an amount that is equal to 1/2. You need to show 1/2 3 more times on this number line. You have to show an example of 1/2. You have to find 1/2 twice on each of these clocks, and you have to explain what 1/2 means. And you have to keep this inside your math folder. Now, this is a long math video because, well, no, you know what? I'm going to stop the video just in case my parents get here so that I don't think I have to finish everything at once. So, this video is only showing you what is half. It will also show you, however, that's not the one I want, crumb cakes. It's supposed to show you, there we go, the online practice for today. So you just watched this video that I just made. Now, this is your online practice. You have to decide, does this fraction show 0, 1/2, or 1? How many pieces? 7. How many of those pieces do you have? How many pieces are included in your part? All 7 of them. Well, then this certainly would be showing one whole thing. What about this? There are 4 pieces, but you don't have any of them. What does that look like? Well, if we go down to this section, here are the 4ths, but you can't color any of them in. Well, that kind of looks like, nothing. 0 pieces out of 8. Again, it doesn't show 8ths here, but weren't there 8 sections in the number line? If you have 0 of them, do you have the whole thing? Do you have half of it? No, you got nothing. There are 9 pieces in the entire thing. You have all 9 of those pieces. 9 out of 9 means, hey, guess what? I have the entire amount. I'm trying to get it to get us to one with half. So you know what? We're going to skip and skip and skip. Oh, come on. Maybe it's not going to show half. If half doesn't show up here pretty soon, I'm going to say, when you are given a problem showing half, congratulations, you need to tell me about it, because so far, wait a minute, there it is. Do you see the difference? The one right before this had a 0 on top. It doesn't matter how many pieces, if you don't have any of them, you certainly don't have half of it. Others had the same number on top and bottom. So if you would have 12 pieces and there are 12 pieces that you get to color in, that would mean you have the entire thing. But here, you only have 6 out of the 12. If you say 6 and double it, you get 12, which means you only have half of the amount. You need to, for your assignment today, for your online practice, you need to do 15 of these. I'm kind of curious if you come across half more often than I did. Your next video is going to be about the graded assignment. So please be sure you watch it carefully, because there are things on the graded assignment that you haven't run into yet. But your online practice and this sheet, that is for your practice. This sheet does need to get finished. It does need to be kept in your math folder. Don't lose it. Thank you.